Okay, once again, I'm Moses Mora, and I'm telling you about the mural project that MB Hanrahan and I did, the Tortilla Flats mural. I told you a lot about the images that we got and how we got them and how they ended up on the mural, and I hope you're getting a good sense of what I was talking about there because this is a wonderful project, and we want people to enjoy listening about that. So, what I've told about so far is the images and how they got on the mural. Let me back up again because we had to do those our research before we started painting. When we got to the point where we're about to paint or we need to get ready to get all of our supplies together, um, we found out that we had to come to a place to where we had to give ourselves titles. So I became the project coordinator, and MB Hanrahan became the artist, the artistic director. You know, and I would say so. What that means is I'm doing a whole lot of the organizing and but we both did everything. But and MB was deciding what's going to get on the mural. So she's the artistic director, and I would say that means that MB had the first word and the last word about what's going to be on the mural. And she would add, and a whole lot of words in between there too. But that's how we worked. You know, we understand our roles. And because on the first mural that we did, we included other artists who had to be organized and given direction. The other thing is that at this point we did not have funding or very close to it. In that year, in the mid 1990s, the city of Ventura, was having a funding cycle, and they were giving monies to for art projects, and we applied, and we got a small grant from the city of Ventura to start, but it wasn't nearly enough, and we had to find sponsors on our own. We got a whole lot of donated paint, donated wood to paint the mural on. We found a donated wall. And so we had to do our own bit of hustling to make this mural happen. But finally, we got this check from the city of Ventura, and we realized when we were interviewing all the elders of Ventura, we realized that a whole bunch of them have not spoken to each other in a long time, even though they didn't live that far away from each other. And it wasn't because of any kind of animosity. It's just that our lives take us in different directions. So we got this idea before we put even one drop of paint on the wall. We decided, why don't we have a Tortilla Flats reunion? And make it free. Make it free to all the old timers who told us their stories. So we got a little venue in downtown Ventura. When we asked people about their wedding parties that they had, well, Buddy Gibson was one of them, Buddy Gibson and the Customs, who we did paint into the mural. But also there was another band that we painted into the mural, and that was the Estrada Brothers, who played sort of like a Latin jazz dance type of music, and they were very popular, and they were hired a lot. And so we hired the Estrada Brothers to play at this reunion. And when we would ask people, when they're telling us, especially say a Mexican interviewee, and we asked them, who did you see at the Green Mill Ballroom? One name that came up a lot was the guy who is affectionately known as the grandfather of Chicano music, and that would be Lalo Guerrero. His name came up, that he came to Ventura and played at the Green Mill Ballroom. So Lalo was old at the time, but he was still alive and he was still available to perform. And we called him up and asked him if he would come to Ventura and perform at this reunion for the people of Tortilla Flats. And at the time, he had recorded a new song that was just perfect for our project. And the name of the song was Barrio Viejo, the old neighborhood. And that's what we were all about. We were about telling the story of the old neighborhood. And listening to that song back then or today, it just tells such a endearing story. So we got Lalo Guerrero to drive out here from the desert to Ventura, and we got the Estrada brothers, and we put them both together. And at some point, they decided on their own that after Lalo performed and after the Estrada brothers performed, that they would perform together. And the audience just loved it. And that became the first Tortilla Flats reunion. And the people got back together, and we've been doing reunions ever since. COVID gave us a break. We haven't had a reunion in a few years, and that's precious to us because so many people have passed on. You know, I told you in the very beginning that when we started interviewing people, that was 30 years ago, and by then a lot of people have passed on, and in the last 30 years more people have passed on. Almost every month we read somebody in the neighborhood has passed on. And what I'd like to say about that too is that, you know, once we started this project 30 years ago, the name Tortilla Flats became pretty common around Ventura. Prior to that, it was a memory of the old-timers who had it, and maybe people who grew up there like myself. I knew it, and I've always claimed Tortilla Flats and knew about it. But we started noticing about 20, 25 years ago when there was an obituary in the local newspaper, and the people who wrote the obituaries would say, this person was a proud member, resident of Tortilla Flats. And we see that a lot in obituaries now, where people are claiming it, you know, before they leave, before they're buried or make their journey through the spirit world. They want people to know that they came from Tortilla Flats. And in fact, Mary Diaz, just a matter of 3 days ago, we were at her memorial too. And she was a proud member and a great supporter of Tortilla Flats. And one last thing I want to say about the people that we interviewed. You know, when people would give an interview, and the last question I would ask, I'd say, who else should we talk to? And they knew. They said, you got to get a hold of Jimmy Capito. You got to get hold of Simon Camarillo or Carmela Flores, you know, and just like that. And we'd go to those people and would say, hey, Jimmy said we should talk to you, and would get another wonderful interview. So that's why I say the interview process was so interesting. But now we're talking about painting it. And, you know, the little monies that we had, and we had that reunion, and that started something that hasn't stopped. And we worked on the first mural, which was on Figueroa Street. It was painted onto a wall, and the materials we were hustling for them. We were asking for them. So they were not the best materials, the wood or the paint. It was a mixture. You know, sometimes we got some good paint donated to us, and sometimes we'd get some leftover paint donated to us. And the quality wasn't necessarily all the same. And we worked with a number of artists in town, artists that we knew, and would ask them, do you want to come and paint on the mural? And they did. And sometimes students would come by. Their class from a local school would bring like maybe the third or fourth grade class, and would have them paint something close to the ground because they were short ones. And when you think about that, those people are now in their 30s, but they were there at the beginning of the painting of the mural. And they probably went to college, started families, and maybe they're grandparents by now. All right, but that's how this project just kind of resonated with the people of Ventura. And I think that part of the reason for that also is the fact that what we're telling a universal story. It doesn't matter where you grew up, where you came from coast to coast. If you were to go back to the neighborhood that you grew up in all those years ago, you could think about, wow, this neighborhood has changed. And that's the way of the world. It changes. Sometimes it goes away, and it gets knocked down, and a shopping mall is there now, or whatever. That's the reason that we say this is a universal story that a whole lot of people can identify with. And Ventura is the kind of town where people come to this town. Maybe they're a professional, and maybe their long-term goal is to work in San Francisco or Los Angeles, in a bigger city. But Ventura is a great-sized town to, learn their profession. So people come through town, and then they leave. And then another group comes through town. And so we're constantly telling the story to new people who come, because we're a very mobile society today. But some of us, like those of us who lived in Tortilla Flats, we're rooted here. We stay here, and we're proud of the old neighborhood, and we're proud of the story. We're proud of what we created, and it was great like that. That first mural, as murals go, an outdoor mural, if it lasts 5 years, that's a long time, because what damages a mural is not some youngster with a marking pen. It's the elements themselves. The sun will fade out the colors of a mural, and where we painted down by the ocean in Ventura, every evening, that evening air would roll in, and the air would be very heavy with water, and everything would get wet, and then in the daytime it would dry. So this inexpensive wood that we used to paint on, it would expand and it would contrast over and over again every day, subject to the elements out there, and the mural would begin to peel, just like that, and it wouldn't last, and we knew it wasn't going to last. The first mural lasted about 5 years, and we, the artists, decided it's no longer pleasing to the eye. Let's take it down. So MB and I decided we were going to take it down. A lot of people thought that the city took it down and blamed the city. Like, why did they take that mural down? It meant so much to us. And we would just say, don't blame the city. That was our decision, But we also knew that this project, Tortilla Flats, was so good, it was too good to go away. And a few years later, we got word that the city was looking for us. And this time, they made us another offer to redo the mural, but this time properly funded, that we could get the best materials available, the best wood, the best paints, and recreate the mural. And so Tortilla Flats Mural Part 2 came into being. And that's also on Figueroa Street, and it's there today under the freeway underpass, which is quite ironic because in the beginning the neighborhood had to go because of the freeway, but in today's world the story of the neighborhood is told on 4 large panels on both sides of the street. And at one point it was the biggest outdoor art piece in Ventura. I don't know if it still is, but we were quite proud of that. And when we had our mural dedication, the city actually closed down the street, and we got Buddy Gibson and the Customs to play at our dedication, our party that we had right there on the streets. And so it goes on, and as we speak right now, as I'm telling you right now, we're still gathering information, and there has been a talk about another mural coming down the pike. It might or might not happen. I'll just kind of put it out there as a teaser because we never stopped gathering information and learning new stories about Ventura because it's a wonderful place. It's the people in Ventura very often, we just stay here. You know, where are we going to go? What's better? I mean, my family came from New Mexico, and they call New Mexico the land of enchantment. And they do that because New Mexico is a very enchanting place. And I feel proud that, you know, in terms of my family, I come from 2 very beautiful places, New Mexico and Ventura, California.